All right. Hey. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blown Speakers, episode 2. And this week it is Love by Love, the eponymous debut by the great rock and roll band of the 60s from Los Angeles. Love. Our presenters today, as they are always, David Henningman, and the second Zoom panel there, and myself, Greg Janko. And a first for Blown Speakers, a very special guest, Mr. Brandon Delmont, is here with us.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Brandon. Brandon is a world-class drummer. He was at the helm of the rhythm sections of Girl Pope, Odeorn, the Stay Lows.
A name you can't say. Yeah, no one can say that name. Odeorn.
Odeorn.
It's the name you have to say twice. Is usually what I say. Not only do I say it, but I tell people that after. I'm literally every time. So,
Odeorn.
Odeorn. The name you have to say twice. Odeorn. Yes, the Stay Lows.
The Son of the Sun.
Son of the Sun, yes.
Black Canyon Lights.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about them. That was a short thing.
Oh, okay. The Past Masters.
Yes. Which is a Beatles cover band.
Have done the White Album in its entirety.
We have done the White Album.
I haven't.
I'm sorry.
The St. Joe's Jazz Lab Band.
Not only that, I was the president of the lab band my senior year.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Good thing we got that notable recognition in.
Right.
And well, beyond his skills on the trap kit, noted accomplished composer and arranger with the Lindbergh Babies.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
And currently a house save for Tigers with Mr. Mark Constantino.
Yep, my man.
So a very long and accomplished CV resume, but perhaps his most esteemed credential in the world of music is that he is my drum teacher. We've been on hiatus with COVID-19, but a lot of people have asked or had picked up those skills, and maybe Mr. Delmont.
That is my biggest accomplishment.
That's a joke, because
a lot of our lessons end up kind of like this, like this conversation. We have gone on tangents, which were great, and I hope we go on the same tangents tonight, because it's fun to bounce off of people who are hit as hard by the rock and roll as I am, and you certainly, I count you among those people.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah.
Anyone who takes a big box of Mojo magazines to your house says, "Here, read these," is a friend of mine.
Yeah. And I've got some more. And,
good.
And Dave Henningman is right there with us. Mm-hmm. And he's the guy who turned me on to Mojo magazine back in 2000 in Narimaku in Japan. And so for those viewers who this is their inaugural episode of Blown Speakers, I'm in Buffalo. Brandon and I are residents of Buffalo, New York, and Dave, born and bred in Cleveland, Ohio, is a current resident of Yokohama, Japan.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm talking to you from tomorrow morning.
Yeah, from the future.
Yeah.
I have to work tomorrow morning. So,
anyway. It's still Friday, though. It's still Friday.
Correct.
So a true Renaissance man, two true Renaissance men. And we're here to discuss love. And it's a great album. And let's give a little let's look a little backstory and a little look at the back of the album. So let's see if I do this. There it is. There's the back of the LP. Oh, and Dave, as you noted, the Love logo, according to one of our sources, was the first official band logo for any
really
notable rock band.
Great logo, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That Johnny Eccles interview, he talks about it. I guess Elektra Records, someone there had made it, and they they love it. You know, they loved they loved it. So they're like, yeah, that's great.
There was so much love. I like, and I wonder, you know, well, with the O, they have the gender symbols.
Yep. Yeah.
Which that became a thing with the Who, right? The Who at one point. Is it the Who and the O and the Who?
Mm-hmm.
They just have the arrow, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if I don't know who was first with that, Love or the Who, but yeah, a beautiful, elegant, very much of the time logo.
You know,
and here's the lineup of the band. The leader, the founder, Arthur Lee, with the plaid pants, standing atop. To his left, Brian McLean.
Greg, do you have a laser pointer option you can use? That might be helpful.
I don't know if I do, Dave.
All right. If you don't see it, don't worry about it. All right.
Well, Brian McLean there to Arthur Lee's left with the Brian Jones haircut. To Arthur Lee's right, we have the drummer who plays on the album. He's got a tricky name. Hold on, I got to refer to my notes.
Or something like that.
Albin Snoopy Fisterer.
Fisterer. Wow.
Yeah.
Snoopy. That's when you have a name like that, they got to give you a nickname, right? Snoopy. Fisterer with a PF, no less. Yeah. Double ER. Wow. Fisterer.
Fisterer. You're Snoopy. The original Snoop Dogg. Albin Snoopy Fisterer. To his right, John, also known as Johnny Eccles, guitar player. And they said he knew Arthur Lee from his original home of Memphis, Tennessee, that he was also native of Memphis. And then in the white it looks like a windbreaker, but actually now looking at it, it's kind of like a kind of hippie jacket. Ken Forsey, who played bass on the album. And the album was released March 1966 on the highly esteemed Elektra label, which was also, initially was a folk label. But with Love, they went more in a rock direction, and later became the home for the Doors. The album was produced by Jack Holtzman and Mark Abramson. Jack Holtzman, I think, was the founder of Elektra.
Yeah, and I heard that they went to Elektra because, at least this is what Johnny Eccles says. He was in his Memphis days. He was friends with Little Richard, and Little Richard said, "You want to keep your songs, you want to keep the publishing rights to your songs," and Elektra was the only label that would let them. So that's why they went to Elektra.
Oh,
which is very interesting, I think.
Yeah.
So there was a little tip that he got from Little Richard.
Yeah, some good business advice. Yeah, you would think Little Richard might be the sage.
Because, you know, bands were getting ripped off back then, big time, all the time, and you know, Arthur Lee wasn't going to get ripped off. And he also, just to add to that, I did read that Arthur, I don't think it was when he was with Love, but before he had done some recording and some songs, songwriting, and he was saving, he wasn't giving him his best songs. He was giving him his B songs, his B list.
Oh, really?
Because he wanted to test them to see if he was going to get ripped off.
Oh.
So he was using his B material, which I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, who does that? Usually you're like, this is the best song I ever wrote, you know, and you try to throw it in there. And he was like, well, I'm not going to give you my best song because you might rip me off.
Wow. And what a testament to his talent and his belief in himself that, like,
yeah,
you know, I just wrote this song, but it's, you know, I know I can do better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Brandon.
Wait, but when just talking about the personnel. So, but Brandon, didn't you say there's some mystery surrounding if Snoopy played drums on all the tracks, or?
Well, yes. So there's this Don Capo. Is that what it? Who I guess played drums with. He was actually in the band, and he had some problems, some drug problems, I guess. And they had to get Snoopy, and he would sit in once in a while whenever he wouldn't show up, whenever Don wouldn't show up, and then before he knew it, he was always playing with them. But Snoopy's funny in that documentary you probably saw. He doesn't seem that confident about his skills.
No.
He's kind of funny about it. But I'm sure this will come up as we're talking about the album too. But I was trying to get to the bottom of who actually played the drums on it. And I think it was Snoopy. But it says in the liner notes to this Love Story, unless I was reading it wrong, the CD compilation that I bought a bunch of years ago, that Arthur played drums on some of it. So,
oh yeah,
I don't know. And at that time, especially with Love not being a huge band yet, I don't think people were as interested in keeping good records. I mean, you know what I mean? Historically, if you were in a recording studio now with a big band, you'd want to note as much as you can about who's playing what and who's doing whatever. But back then it was, well, who is this band kind of thing? Because there's even because I think it mentions there were 2 recording sessions, and one of them, and I this was just through Google searching that I found this. Most of it was done in one session with, I think, this lineup we're talking about. And then there was another one where I think there were 3 songs mentioned where Don Capo plays drums on.
I just did a little check, guys, and Don Conca.
Sorry.
Conca, no. Yeah. So.
But here, Greg, it says, right after I asked that question, I saw this. According to the Wikipedia page for this album, Arthur Lee, right, lead vocals, percussion, harmonica, also drums on Can't Explain, No Matter What You Do, Gazing.
Oh, really?
And the song And More. So 4 songs, Arthur plays drums.
Wow, I didn't know that. I know in that documentary, the documentary we've seen on Love, which you can find on YouTube. I believe it's an English documentary.
Not great quality, unfortunately, but yeah, it's a good documentary.
Good information.
Yeah. Good information,
Snoop talks about how, for the kind of famous recording of their single 7 and 7 Is, which is after this album, but iconic, and their highest hit, I guess. But on that song, which has a really fast beat, he said it took him a number of takes, and a few times Arthur sat down to try and do it because Snoopy was struggling. but he said he couldn't actually, Arthur couldn't actually play it. And Snoopy kind of puts in a little dig. He's like, oh, Arthur sat down. He said, oh, let me try it. I know how it goes. But he's not really a drummer. But so that's why I'm surprised when you say he played on 4 of the songs here. Definitely an accomplished musician and visionary in the band.
Okay, so if Arthur Lee played on 4 and Don Conca played on 3, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I guess Snoopy probably played on half of the album. He probably played on 7 tracks then.
Huh.
If that's where we're going with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's funny because when I was listening to the album today on my headphones, and I was listening specifically to the drumming, there is very similar drumming on like almost every song. It's almost like this. It's almost like a trick where, he plays a beat with the ride cymbal, the bell, and every like 4 measures he does a fill. And it's either dinging gacka dinging gacka dinging dacka digga 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 or dacka 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 digga 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 digga. But it's funny though, because it's like almost every song has that same pattern going, and I never really recognized it until today, where I was like listening to it through the album.
It reminds me of Get Off My Cloud.
Oh yeah,
Charlie's.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's interesting if there are 3 different drummers. I guess with that knowledge now, I would have to go back and listen and see if maybe they're just kind of Arthur Lee's copying what Snoopy would do and just doing it better or something. I don't know. But it's interesting because when you listen to the album, you'll hear that same pattern over and over on almost every song.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pay more attention to the drums.
Wait,
I guess we're gonna hear some of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll keep forging ahead. Let's see what's next.
Did we mention the year? I think this is 1966.
Yeah, 1966.
Sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think really these guys are ahead of the curve. I mean, I think of like as far as fashion and like kind of social consciousness. I mean, this is like kind of like swinging London. When did they say swinging London was like? I mean, they say the Summer of Love was 1967, but I think swinging London was probably like 66 around this time. This is kind of like swinging London in LA. And these guys live communally in a mansion in Los Angeles.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Was that during the recording of this album when they lived in the castle?
I think so. I think I read that this picture. Wait, let me get to it. Is in the really? Backyard.
I thought it was later, but that sure could be true. You were talking about fashion. Arthur Lee was, I came across something on YouTube or whatever, where he's talking about how he would wear one moccasin and he would just go into places and
I think I read that too. Yeah.
Because he just wanted to like get noticed or something. And so he would just be like, I'll be the guy who walks around with one moccasin on.
And his other foot was barefoot.
Yeah. So you're gonna get noticed, I guess, if you're doing that. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Isn't he also a big guy? I mean, he looks big to me, right? And he was like a basketball star in high school.
He was, and they had the picture in the documentary of him on the basketball team.
Yeah,
I would say over 6 foot.
Not to give myself too much credit for my I was.
Oh, how tall are you, Dave? Is that what?
No. I mean, I wasn't gonna. I'm not going that direction. I would say 2 songs into listening to this album, I of course, Little Red Book and then Can't Explain. You could his confidence is just kind of off the charts. You could feel his confidence in his, his presence and how he sings.
Yeah.
And, knowing that this was their debut album, he was very young. I had this idea that, like, I bet he was a high school athlete.
Huh.
That idea just came to me because I was like, why, how does this guy have that much confidence? And then that's just the idea that came to me. Maybe it's also related to, I think, how he's standing on the cover looks kind of athletic too. So maybe that, factored into my thinking. But it was interesting when you watch the documentary, very shortly into it, they talk about the fact that he broke some basketball record at his high school.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh. Paving the way for Bob Pollard.
Yeah.
Robert Pollard.
Yeah.
Was he a basketball star?
Basketball and baseball. I think especially baseball. Bob Pollard. Yeah, he threw a no-hitter at Wright State University.
Oh, wow. We opened up for Guided by Voices at the Continental as well.
Oh, nice.
But
that's another concert I missed.
That was a good one.
But
anyway, Arthur
all right,
Lee,
we're gonna have
athletic.
to say that for another episode. Delmont's got 1,000 of them.
That,
so let's get back to the fashion. We'll look at the pants, plaid pants in 1966. I don't think many people, many gentlemen were wearing plaid pants at the time. So it kind of struck me as funny. Like, and there he is, Dave, you're talking about the confidence. He's got a leather coat and proudly showing off these plaid pants. Because in my mind, as someone was born after this 1970, growing up in the 70s and 80s, plaid wasn't quite as cool. And here's my here's my first grade photo. And the arrow is pointing. I don't know who this young man is with the leather shoes, but the red plaid pants. And, so it was very much mainstream by 1976, 77. You'll notice the girls, I think it's Megan Littlefield and Katie Logal. They have plaid dresses on. And for more evidence for my argument, my father golfing around the same time, 1978, with plaid pants. So
in perfect form.
Arthur Lee, I'm going to tell Arthur Lee way ahead of the curve with fashion. And it's kind of interesting how something, so a guy who's, maybe walking around with one moccasin and really wants to catch your attention, how he can influence, fashion across the country, across the world. But now let's kind of delve more into the music. Arthur Lee said he was watching this film, What's New Pussycat, which I guess features a Tom Jones song. And a musical score by Burt Bacharach. I read that it's the screenplay is by Woody Allen. And you see Woody Allen. Oh, I have there's a caricature of Woody Allen. Peter Sellers is in the movie. Peter O'Toole. So star-studded cast. But the song that stood out in Arthur Lee's mind was the Burt Bacharach song, My Little Red Book, done by Manfred Mann. Let's see if we can hear this.
I just got out my little red book the minute that you said goodbye. I thumbed right through my little red book. I wasn't gonna sit and cry. And I went from A to Z. I took out every pretty girl in town. They danced with me while I held I start to cry. There is just no getting over you. No girl who's in my little red book.
No, let me stop it there. Sounds pretty good.
Sounds great.
Any? Oh, did I? Oh, we don't want to go there. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I cut off this sound. Let's go back. Any thoughts, guys, on that? That was sounding pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised the tempo is about the same as the Love one, right? I guess I assume that Love really sped it up, but maybe not.
I think they just had harder guitars, but it is pretty true to the original, I think, even though they think maybe at the time it seemed radically more aggressive, because they kind of say that, but I think it's kind of true to the original. But a lot of things have changed since then, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because I remember when I first heard Rush, I thought it was the heaviest thing I've ever heard in my life. In like 1982, I was like, what is this? This is like the devil's music or something. It was 2112. But anyway, so like over time, I think music has gotten so heavy that maybe before then, hearing something with any sort of distortion on it was probably like rock and roll.
Well, let's hear the Love version. Let's see if oh no, that's Manfred Man.
No,
that's Manfred Man.
You can tell by that piano.
To go to here and no, back and up. Technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Up there. Maybe exit. Here we go.
I just got out my little red book the minute that you said goodbye. I thumbed that through my little red book. I wasn't gonna sit and cry. And I went from A to Z. I took out every pretty girl in town. They danced with me. And as I held them, all I did was talk about you. You name it, I started to cry. There's just no getting over you. Oh no. There ain't no girl in my little red book who could ever replace your charms. And each girl in my little red book knows you're the one I'm thinking of. Oh, won't you please come back? Without your precious love, I can't go on. Where can love be? I need you so much. All I did was talk about you. You name it, I start to cry. There's just no getting over you. Oh, no.
What's up? Yeah, it's just so driving, you know, and that I think it starts off with the bass, and then it seems the bass and the guitar are in unison, and I mean, it's great. I mean, kind of, this has to be, you know, one of the pillars of garage rock and roll. Think where Jack White found his sound. And the vocal too. I mean, he was creating something. I mean, I like the Manfred Man, but I mean, this is just something totally new for, you know. What do you guys think?
Well,
go, Brandon.
well, I was just gonna say that the first thing, we didn't even talk about how Love was, you know, racially, you had two African American people with three white people making this kind of music, and right off the bat you can hear that soul singing
Yeah, that's
of
a good
Arthur
point.
Lee. He said that James Brown was a big influence on him, so you have that, like, that very American sound of, like, those soulful vocals is the first thing
Mhm.
that, well, actually the first thing I noticed was the bass, and then coming together with that the vocals was just, I think that the vocals really drive the song personally.
I mean,
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's
Mm.
something.
Multiracial was what I was trying to say.
Yeah. One of the, I mean,
interracial. Mm.
Yes,
I
thank you.
know what I'm thinking about. I wonder. Well, I think the Booker T and the MGs. Well, yeah, they certainly formed before Love, but they
They were
were.
a huge influence on them. Yeah.
What's that?
That Booker T was a huge influence on them. They had their band was called, before Love, was Arthur Lee and the what was it, the LG?
Oh, really? I didn't read that, because they were
Yeah,
the Grassroots. They were the Grassroots for a while
right.
before the
Exactly. Yeah, it was
band
before
that became
that.
famous. Oh, but they were the LGs or something.
Yeah, and they were trying to do Booker T kind of songs, I guess, which is on my list of things I have to look up on YouTube now, because I want to hear it. I want to hear what they did.
Where was Booker T based? What city?
Memphis.
Memphis. Okay, that makes sense too, because that's where Arthur and Johnny were originally from, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. So yeah, I just read last night or the night before how when he came to Los Angeles, or he was getting into music, he was really impressed by the Byrds, and that's how he met Brian McLean, was a roadie for the Byrds. And you can hear it with the guitar, that jangly guitar sound. And but he said his vision was he wanted to, or one vision, kind of marry rhythm and blues sound with Byrd style rock and roll. So yeah, those vocals really do reflect, that rhythm and blues soul tradition.
Yeah.
Now, how old were they? Like, how old was Arthur at this time? Like 19 or something? It's really young, right?
Yeah, I think a teenager, because they go into that in the documentary.
Yeah.
About
getting out of the contract.
Yes. And he said
that's how they tried to get out of the contract, right? They said we were too young, we weren't even old enough to sign the contract.
Right.
With Elektra. So I think you're right. I think he said he was like 19 years old.
So that's what
So yeah, very young. Yeah.
When I was talking about his confidence, right? When you listen, you just hear those vocals, it's hard to believe it's a 19-year-old,
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, that's
completely.
Yeah.
Wise soul or something.
I didn't sound like that as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
I did not have a little red book either. I still don't. I've got a green book from my barber. All right.
But typically that phrase would be little black book, right? Like, but I saw there was some mention that they were, I guess it would have been background. Red. It was somehow related to Chairman Mao. Little Red Book.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I just saw that, and yeah. I was hoping you guys knew.
Backrack was a communist.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Interesting. No.
Yeah.
Something more to explore on YouTube. Okay, the next song, track 2, Can't Explain. And not to be confused with the Who song, I Can't Explain.
Right. That's the difference.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you're probably right. That was one of the first things that I kind of the Who's version, or not, I shouldn't say version because they're not the same song, but
yeah.
the Who song is kind of a ripoff of the Kinks.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, yeah.
I they did say Love when they would rehearse, they would learn Kinks songs and they'd learn Beatles songs, and so that they definitely were aware of that kind of like that kind of music as far as
Sure.
and
Yeah.
you can hear it. And I wonder if Can Explain. I wonder if he was just like, I can write a better song called that. I'm wondering that. I'm not rewriting Love history here. That's just something I wonder.
So when did the Who's Can't Explain, I Can't Explain come out? It was before this?
I'm going to guess 65, Brandon.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think
60
you're, yeah.
Okay.
65 or
it was-
66?
It was before this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So rather
So it's possible.
intense. Could I want to read a verse of this? Rather intense lyrics, huh?
oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, now you wake up in the morning, find your poor self dead, right? I said you wake up in the morning, find your poor self dead. That's pretty heavy.
That's for
No.
a 19-year-old. Yeah.
Is he so now that it seems the theme of the song is about a troubled relationship. So is it?
Yeah, you always want to start a fight. I mean, there aren't many words in this song. It's Can Explain, nothing seems to be going right, repeated twice. And then the chorus. Well, I guess they call it the chorus. Yeah. You wake up in the morning, find your poor self dead. Said you wake up in the morning, find your poor self dead. What a shame. You always want to start a fight. So that's
now
basically it. That's the whole song.
The person who the waking up dead is. Do you think he's singing about himself or the partner in the relationship, or just you as kind of a general you to like everyone?
There's a few times where it seems like he is criticizing someone who's partying too hard, doing too many drugs.
Okay.
So we know that, to some degree that the drummer, what
Don Conca.
okay. But there's another line, a song later in the album, My Flash on You, when he says, don't try to force your smuggled drugs my way.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a few moments where he's like pushing someone back who's trying to lead him down a dark path.
Yeah. Oh, it's good
I think
insight.
you're right.
I think, is it My Flash on You, which I really, I love that. I think it's either, it's another rocker that I really like. And he's talking about someone making fun of how he looks.
Yeah.
Okay, let's,
Wow, way
so let's move here. I think it's My Flash on You, which is this one. Yeah. I love it. That's amazing. Oh, there's, yeah. Woo!
Short song. Huh?
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. I think, like, especially this album, I love the rockers all on this album. You know, and that's certainly one of them. It makes me reminds me of a few different things. Somehow, the attitude makes me reminds me of "If Six Was Nine" by Hendrix. Kind of the lyrically, you know, like
Yeah.
something about the way I look. Yeah, if you're giving me shit about the way I look, that's kind of the attitude of "If Six Was Nine." And it also reminds me of the Ramones. I don't want to walk around with you. Because I mean, doesn't he? I mean, lyrically, I mean, he says something like,
Oh, right.
what's the lyric? Okay, yeah, go. Please
The way.
discuss amongst yourselves. I'll try to find the lyric.
Okay.
I don't want to walk around with you. I don't want to walk around with you. Why you want to walk around with me? Ooh,
Yeah. But I was,
when he says the way I look.
yeah. People, okay, people talk about the way I look. I say, come on and say it. I got enough to write a book.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, but just at the beginning, he says, I don't want to be in your company. I don't need you to take care of me. Yeah, it just makes me think of that Ramon song.
Wow.
I don't want to walk around with you. Just,
for me, like this song is all about that bass line and that fuzzy bass.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes.
That's like, and then Hey Joe is very similar. When I first was listening to this album, I think I was like, did I turn the album over? Because, you know, Hey Joe and this song are so similar. They have the same feel. And he does that bass line trick again. But that fuzzy bass just sounds amazing. And it's throughout the record. And I think it's because, you know, it was like I mentioned, I think it was mostly done in like one session. So they probably just had the gear all set up, and there's not a lot of like changes on the album as far as the sound of it goes. You know what I mean? There's not like, I think the most it changes is on Sign DC when it goes to an acoustic song, but the rest of it kind of keeps the same sound, even the guitars. So I feel like it was just like, all right, next song.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's what I read. It was their set, just like the Beatles' first album. A lot of bands' first album was just, you know, the set that they played at the clubs, and that's why it's so good too. Is you're talking about a tight band that knows these songs really well and has already worked on their sound.
Do either of you guys remember from the documentary the name of the fabled club? Don Dito's, or
yeah, it had a strange name.
Where they you know, like their cavern club where they were, you know, made a name for themselves. Cosmo's Alley. They said there was an alley in the back of the club that they would. Well, you would go ahead, Dave.
Oh, they just talked about how they would block off the ends of the street, right? And like when Love played, and the people would be inside at the club, but the whole street outside would be blocked off. You'd have to pay to get in the alley, right?
Yeah.
And it would just be a whole street full of people every time they played. I mean, that's
I think
pretty
it was
awesome.
Vito Lido's.
Yeah, what was it, Brian?
There's a picture. Vito Lido's.
Vito Lido's.
LITO apostrophe S.
Sounds like there might be a mob connection there. I'm a proud Italian American. You know, that, like that. Well, musically, it's making me think of their. We talked about the British invasion influencing.
Right? Can we maybe stop the screen share so that we get our faces? Maybe.
Oh, okay.
Or I mean, is you okay? Yeah. What do you think?
Dave, now you're the biggest one.
Oh, that's because you must.
Oh no! Oh, when we're talking, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. But yeah, you can definitely, I think, hear that Kinks and Who influence on the guitar, and the fast tempo. Stones too, I would think. But yeah, that fuzz bass is something new. I mean, that's, I think when they talk about them, creating the template for garage rock and like them being a proto punk band, I think you can point to that dirty bass sound and that frenetic pace tempo.
Yeah,
it's something.
that's a highlight track for sure.
So, yes, all viewers, mark that on your LP. I got to get my pen.
My flash on you.
My flash on you. And you know what makes me think of, when they were giving the backstory of, the countercultural youth movement, baby boomers coming of age in the 60s. Like I picture it, some young, some young man like having a standoff with his father in a kitchen where his dad's like, you got to get your hair cut and you got to register for the draft. And he doesn't want to do either, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of buying too much into the.
No.
No, in the documentary, Snoopy talks about, right? Was that in the documentary?
Yeah,
He talks about dodging the draft, and he just went in there on acid and like they said follow the green line, so he followed the blue line or something. And they were just like, go back, get out of here. And he totally. And I was thinking, is it that easy to dodge the draft? Because it seemed pretty easy, but.
Ted Nugent shit his pants.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he admitted it. Yeah, like,
really,
deliberately, or just because he was so scared?
Well, the story I heard, he was shitting in his pants for weeks, right? And he went in he went into the draft board or whoever, just covered in shit, just so he didn't have to go to Vietnam, right?
Wow.
And now he's the right winger. Hotshot.
Yeah.
What a chump.
Yeah.
And I was surprised as I was
I actually have more respect for him now. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's actually it's interesting. As I was researching my little red book, the Nuge did a cover like late 70s, and it even looked like early 80s of my little red book.
Oh really?
And also, and so props to the Nuge for doing that. He also, often talks about the MC5 and what an influence they were on him, and and what a great revelation to see him. But what a chump the Nuge turned out to be, huh? Devote no more time to him.
No.
So, the next track. Should we move on? And we're now moving towards the second half of side one, Softly to Me, which is the first song on the album featuring the vocals of Brian McLean. You want to hear a little bit? It's the next song. Oh, you guys, we're getting it ready.
So as being a Brian McLean song, it's a little more saccharine, right?
Yeah,
it's and for considering how old they were, Arthur Lee's, talking about God and death, and now we're
right.
A young guy singing to a pretty girl, probably, and it gets much lighter.
Yeah,
but still kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's hear a little.
Okay. So here we go. Hit here, Softly to Me.
as your ride cymbal.
Love the organ. We don't hear too much organ up to this.
I could love you more and more each day for a million years. And I'd sit around all day just crying happy tears. To dance and sing my life away, laughing with you, my darling, softly to me. Orange sugar chocolate, hot cinnamon, and lovely things in you. And darling, you know there was really nothing else that I could do but dance and sing my life away, laughing with you, my darling, softly to me. And my darling, you will never know how elegant you'll always be to me.
Kind of like a Latin influence there.
It's evident for anyone to see, and I suppose they probably already do. And how come so suddenly everything depends on you? The dance and sing my life away, and laughing with you, my darling, softly to me. And if I kissed you once, I'd probably do it again. But then that's not so inconceivable, my friend. To dance and sing my life away, and laughing with you, my darling, softly to me.
No. Ooh, little noodly guitar there.
Yeah. So
Um,
the drumming I was talking about, that track is like maybe that's like it's right there. You know what I mean? Ding 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 ding, and it's like when you listen to the album, you'll find that pattern like keeps repeating itself. And I'm wondering, is that one of the tracks that Arthur played the drums on?
No, it doesn't.
No.
No.
Okay,
So it
so this will help me crack the code.
Yeah.
So then that must be Snoopy's style there.
But it's it's kind of interesting what you guys were saying before, like because they're performing together and living together at some point, that even like all the drummers start to sound like each other, and it's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the voices, it's right there on the back of this record, but I never realized that that wasn't Arthur Lee singing. It makes sense when you listen to it, but to make your point again about how you kind of start sounding like each other a little bit.
So Brandon, you thought that Arthur sang every song on this album?
Yeah, actually there was a few songs I wasn't super familiar with because I had a compilation where I thought I had this whole record. I thought it was on there and it wasn't. So there were actually some songs that were somewhat new to me, and I actually had to listen, which we haven't gotten to yet because all these other songs are kind of in my DNA from like listening to this stuff for so long over time. So it was actually kind of nice to be like, oh, there's these other songs, which we get to later, that are new to like pretty much new to me. And what's funny is they stand up to all these other songs. I think they could have been on there too. I don't know what made them distinguish which songs to put on there, but they are a little more of the Birdsy ones, like which you don't seem to like as much, Dave.
I prefer the rockers, but yeah. I mean it's all good.
yeah.
So at this point, we talked a little bit about it before we started recording in our warm-up session. But in the documentary, guitarist Johnny Eccles, I think he's very well spoken, and I enjoy his commentary throughout the documentary. But he's, I think, damning in his criticism of Brian McLean at one point. Just, surprised that not only that his songs, which are, definitely naive, going for a sense of innocence and very melodic, but especially it seemed the thematic qualities of the song, he was very critical of, and dumbfounded that anyone would want to listen to them. Not only that they didn't fit what he felt was the vision for love, but that anyone would want to buy or listen to them. And I hear that song and I love it. I think it's a beautiful song, and and I think that levity of the sound, the sonic quality, as well as the lyrics, is a nice counterpoint to the more intense kind of existential angst quality of Arthur Lee's songs.
Yeah, I think also, to me, the guitar playing, like right off the bat, you hear those like minor chords, and just the way they're playing, like that Love's kind of sound is right in there on the intro to that song. And I think the guitar players were into playing more jazzy.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear that like it's not like just your straight ahead blues scale.
No, and at one point it sounded, I thought, kind of Latin.
Yeah.
And maybe that was kind of brought out too by him playing on the ride. But that the rhythmic style of the guitar playing was definitely not your typical rock and roll playing, or like blues based.
And listening to this album, like that sound, that guitar sound, and just everything about it, like, leads to forever changes, I think.
Right, that's what I'm thinking too. Yes,
you got like just listening to everything, it's almost like this was like the blueprint, and then it just moved into like this kind of sound, but more orchestrated. And but we're not here to talk about forever changes.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you though, Greg. So why did you choose the first album to talk about?
I chose this because I saw it in the records. I didn't have any version of this recording. Didn't have a CD, cassette. I didn't have the vinyl. I saw it in the record store, and I was like, "Oh, it's high time I buy this."
To get it.
And
you recently bought it.
Yeah. So,
okay.
As we were talking about doing an episode, I was listening to it. And I was like, "Well, let's do Love." And I think I first learned of the band. Well, they working at P22. I think Jimmy Chambers brought in that CD that you're holding, Brandon.
Oh, the Love Story, the compilation.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely remember that picture, and it made an impression. And I'd read about them and heard the name, but mostly just as like an influence on the Doors. But it really wasn't until I think seeing High Fidelity, when they use My Little Red Book in the movie, that it grabbed me. I'm like, oh, what a great song. And then at that time, Dave and I were both in Japan, and they have stores in Tokyo where you can rent, or they did, where you could rent CDs.
Yeah, they still do. They still do that in Japan.
Oh, really?
CDs. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I rented that and a bunch of others, and then I taped it out. Dave, remember, I bought a boom box that had a CD player and an MD player, which never caught on. They were little
mini disc.
Yeah, and at that time you could tape like 3 or 5 CDs on one MD, and that was that was the next step in technology. So I remember one of the albums I recorded on MD was his first album, and and it kind of put its hooks in me quicker than Forever Changes, which I got maybe a little before or soon after, but you know, this has more of an edge to it. It has more of the rock and roll. So
Yeah, I feel the same way. I love Forever Changes, and that was the first album I had bought by them on Mark Norris's recommendation. But at first I was like, what are you trying to sell me here? I thought it was a joke.
oh, really?
Yeah. Not really, but kind of. I was a little surprised.
Right.
And this, I agree. This makes more sense, especially coming from Mark.
Right, sure.
This album, the first one, because it had, like you said, it's more edgy. And the first thing that I ever heard from Love was 7 and 7 Is. Mark Norris. I was in a band with him, and if I was going to be in a band with him, Girl Pope, his drummer was going to know this music, so he made me a punk rock starter kit. And that's what it was called. And 7 and 7 Is was on there. And I was just like, what is this song? This is amazing. I right out of the gate, I loved that song. So then I went and bought Forever Changes. And then I was kind of like, it was a little weird to go from this,
sure.
punky, whatever. But this, like you said, this first album is more in line with 7 and 7 Is, as far as the edge and the guitars and power.
Right.
Wait, so what's the relationship between Brian McLean and Arthur Lee moving forward? I mean, because it certainly seems like Brian McLean's trying to cut out his own piece of this, right? With Softly to Me and vocals on Hey Joe. Like, does it? So I don't know what's their relationship going forward. Do they continue to get along, or what happens?
No.
Okay, so
his last album Forever Changes with Love, Brian McLean?
Yes. What happened was, and this is all in Johnny Eccles' interview that you could find on YouTube. I guess Brian McLean was going to try to do, or was offered to do, a solo record, and they went and talked to Arthur, and Arthur fired him. But I think even before that, with Forever Changes, it was supposed to be a double album, and there was going to be more Brian songs on there. And then the label decided they didn't want a double album; they just wanted a single. So that meant that all his songs were going to get cut, or most of them. I think he has a song or two on there. I'm not sure. I have to look at the track listing, but yeah, he was definitely trying to be more of a writer. I think there was a little struggle for who was gonna, but Arthur won, because I think it seemed like he was more the leader of the band, and maybe because he was stronger and athletic.
I think they played 1-on-1. He challenged them to a game of 1-on-1 basketball.
Wait, so he was
that or horse.
He was fired for the mere mention of McLean having a solo album immediately got him fired. Is that?
Yeah,
right?
I think that's how Johnny put it.
Really?
Like, he immediately fired him.
Wow.
They do mention, I can't remember who mentions it in the documentary. It might be the drummer who replaces Snoopy, Mike Stewart, but someone in the documentary mentions how they had a kind of innately competitive relationship. That they both were talented musicians.
Arthur and Brian.
Good performers. So, they were vying for the attention on stage, on the album.
Oh, and for the same girls too.
Yeah, they did. I was
that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I asked, because you would just assume that those two would have a falling out.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does say too. I had to. This I did last night. I had to rewind it like 3 times, but at one, and Arthur Lee was kind of mumbling, but they're talking about the Doors and Jim Morrison, and Arthur Lee says, "Oh yeah, I always liked Jim Morrison. he did something I always wanted to do. He socked Brian McLean in the face.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they're talking about the music, the Doors, and they're mostly talking about kind of their attention and promotion by Elektra Records. And then kind of almost apropos of nothing, Arthur Lee says, yeah, Jim Morrison was a great guy. He punched McLean in the face. So obviously, yeah, there's some competition there and some friction.
I was happy that they had John Densmore from the Doors instead of Ray, because Ray always brings everything back to Morris, some big Morrison love fest. I didn't,
Yeah. I have John Densmore's story.
Nice.
All right.
Well, I mean, I could share with you after the.
Go for it.
This. No, I just.
The viewers want to hear it now.
It's not really that great, but it is kind of funny because he was in the Doors. The Doors, man, the Doors of Perception. That's weird, right? The Doors. But I was in a band called Saturday Soup, and my friend was the AV guy at UB, and he's like, "Hey, Brandon, John Densmore is going to speak at UB, and you're going to help me so that you get to meet him," because he knew I loved the Doors, and it was when he wrote that book. I don't know. He had
I read the memoir. It was about 1990, 91.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
I read it. Okay.
So I met him and I helped him set up. He had like a little drum set, and he's like, "Oh, since you're a drummer, you can help me set this stuff up and blah 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 and take it down." And he was actually really cool. But I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in a band called Saturday Soup," and he's like, "That's weird." And I'm just like, "You were in the Doors, you were like, that's a weird name." It was just such a weird thing for someone from the Doors. You'd think he would accept any weirdness.
He's seen it all, right?
I thought the doors were wide open, man. We already broke on through.
But it was pretty funny though, because he was like, "Yeah, can you help me? A lot of these like weirdos want to talk to me after my little presentation, and just help me take my drums down." And I was like, "Is this some of the stuff you used with the Doors?" He's like, "Yeah." And so I was taking his stands down and like thinking, this is the hi-hat stand that John Densmore probably played, whatever.
Break on through.
I didn't want to say that because that's a ride cymbal pattern. But anyway, I and it looked like it. It was like it was like old 60s stuff. And but it was pretty funny. Some guy was like, "Did you ever get a ride in Jim Morrison's Dodge, blah, blah, blah?" I mean, so he was getting all these like kind of crazy people. But I just felt like, oh, I'm part of John's crew here, even though it was just him. I don't think he was traveling with anybody. And he gave me a book.
Oh, really? Oh, did he give you a copy of that memoir?
Yes. And I read it and I thought it was great. That was the other funny thing is I was like, "Oh, I love your drumming. You're a big influence on me." And he goes, "Really?" Really? And I think he's a great drummer. I was actually really surprised that he was like, "Really? Somebody likes my drumming?"
Wow. Wait, so he spoke at that event. He spoke and he played the drums?
Yeah, he did. Like what he did was he had like he would read parts of the book and then he would reenact some of the things like with him behind the drums. And
wow,
it wasn't like it wasn't like a full drum set. It was like it was just like a few pieces, and he would just like like I remember him reenacting them learning 5 to 1, 5 to 1, baby, 1 and 5, and he was like Jim Morrison was behind him, like singing and like, "No man, boom, 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 boom," and like giving him like the beat or the feel of it. So he would like reenact like stuff like that behind the drums, and it was cool. He's a little different.
He's good in the documentary too. Like, I mean, I like him.
Yeah, me too. I wonder if he remembers me.
We've got to reach out to John Densmore.
Hey, how about that?
Possible special guest.
How about that story in all right, when they get $5,000, the band Love gets $5,000.
Yes, I want. Yeah, go ahead. Dave.
Arthur Lee goes out and spends $4,500 on a was it a Mercedes?
Gullwing Mercedes.
Yeah, and with only 2-seater, right? Like, I mean, like the whole band can't even fit in it, you know.
But then he gave the other members each, I think, $100. Wait,
yeah, the remaining
$100 each, right?
Yeah, you guys even get $100, and this is my Mercedes.
It's funny because earlier in the documentary he talks about how, the era, talking about the young kids in LA and the kind of burgeoning hippie culture, and how great it was if someone would give you the shirt off their back. He says, if you needed it, it's yours. What's mine is yours. And then he gets the $5,000.
See, yeah,
$4,500 is mine. $100 is yours, and I'll give you a ride when you need one.
yeah.
That's great.
Maybe he's just like, my goal is I'm going to buy a car when I get my record deal, and he had the money there, and he was just like, I'm going to go buy a Mercedes.
Mm.
And
did he?
I thought that is hilarious, though.
Mm.
How many do we know? So, "Hey Joe" is like a traditional, song, old blues folk song, and then "Softly to Me" is a Brian McLean song. Did Arthur Lee write all the other songs? Oh, and "My Little Red Book" is Burt Bacharach. Do we know that?
Say, let me see if I can look that up.
So, I mean, as the songwriter and definitely the visionary of the band, the creative force, he's probably
all songs written by Arthur Lee except where indicated. But so we've got 14 songs total, right? You got the Bacharach song. Can't Explain was 3 of them wrote together, right? Brian McLean, Softly to Me. Emotions, Lee and Johnny. Hey Joe, Billy Roberts. Mushroom Clouds, 4 of them wrote together, and the song And More, Lee and Brian McLean. So yeah, he's kind of the single McLean, I should say. He's kind of the principal songwriter, it seems.
But that's a significant cut. That's a bold move.
Yeah,
buying the car.
That's funny. Jeez, how would you feel about that?
Yeah, so
you're holding your $100 as he speeds away in the car.
Gullwing.
I wanted to mention the song "I'll Be Following." I'll be following.
Or you I'll be following.
You I'll be following. Okay, you I'll be following.
First track on side 2.
So it really reminded me. It took me a while to place it, but it reminded me of this song. Do you know the song "Hold Tight"? Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch. Do you know the song?
No.
Tarantino uses it in a movie. That's why I know it. It's in the movie Death Proof, and it's got a very similar feel to "You I'll Be Following," and they were a British band, right? The Davey D and etc. But that song "Hold Tight" came out 1 month before this, right?
Wow.
In London. Yeah. So it's I don't know. When you have time, I'd say listen to those 2 tracks together. They sound kind of similar.
Hold Tight?
Yeah, it's called "Hold Tight." Davey D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch. Actually, if you just look up Dave D, you'll like Dave space DEE.
Dave's okay.
Yeah, but but maybe just that. I don't know. Maybe there are more. Maybe it's just kind of a that beat or something. Maybe is standard or something. But I was really I thought it was interesting that those songs came out kind of.
I'm gonna play a little.
Play a little
of "You I'll Be Following." I might turn down. This might give a little better sound. Turn this up. Okay, here we go.
There it is again. Tim Carter.
Yeah, wailing on the drums, huh?
Oh, Tom. Cut it
All right. Look, can I play the song? Let's check out the
Sure,
technical
yeah.
stuff. Wait.
And as you, I thought it was in the lyrics. He says, "I went to Baghdad," and then he goes from Baghdad to Laurel.
All right,
Dave D. Dozy.
yeah. All right. Yeah. Check
Is
this
this
out.
are they an English band?
Yeah.
Count of three, gotta stay close by me and hold tight, sing and shout, just wrap around the pound and hold tight, shut your eyes, girl, you set me up for forget the other guys, you'll never fall, each time you call, hold tight, hold tight, hold tight,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of
Sure.
similar, huh?
It's got that soul stomper, four on the floor. Doc,
Mm.
doc, doc.
Mm.
This one band, the Son of the Sun, we used to call it the Blickum. Blickum, 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 blickum.
Mm.
Whenever we didn't know what to do, it's like, let's just do blickums.
Mm.
We'll throw blickums in there. But yeah, it's the same beat for sure.
Yeah,
Very
Pretty-
similar. Yeah.
been tempos and pretty similar too.
And he was talking about that song, and he's singing to God. I'll follow God.
Oh,
He's saying, I went to Johnny, I went to Conca. That's the drummer, Johnny.
right.
So
Johnny
he's like-
Eccles and Don Conca.
And yeah. Well, does it say something about somebody having drugs?
Okay, I'm trying to
In
find
there?
out.
I think so. Well,
I'm
he
on the-
says
I'm on the case, guys. Wait, let's see. Lyrics.
so. He went to see the guitarist Johnny Eccles, and then he went
to see the drummer.
the
and-
original drummer Don Conca.
Yeah,
One of them has drugs, right?
I got it. I went to Johnny. I went to Conca. One of them told me that he was holding, but now.
Yeah, holding.
Uh,
So I think he's trying to say I tried drugs and it wasn't the answer. I went to God.
Oh,
And also he talks about what, like you said, I went to Baghdad, I went to Laurel.
Yeah.
And that's where the castle was in Laurel Canyon.
tripped in the canyon.
Tripped in
then
the canyon.
he says, I tripped. I was bent. Like,
My head is still bent.
oh, my head is still bent. Yeah, he's still
Is that
recovering.
what he says? Yeah.
Yeah.
My head is still bent. Yeah.
You, I'll be following. So, so he's saying,
I thought it was about a girl, you know,
Yeah.
like he found you know, a true love, a girlfriend who's, you know, that relationship will keep him stable and on a straight and narrow path.
But I think he said in our documentary that relationship was God, Greg.
Brandon, back in '67 when I was in the Cosmo Alley.
Which is funny too, because we're talking about his age and being so young, and that like think that way is special, I think.
Yeah. Oh
Different.
yeah.
I wouldn't.
I think that gives the song, I think, more weight, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
so he's a pretty religious guy. Arthur Lee, is that? Part
I
of it,
don't,
or-
but I don't think so. I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know.
Okay.
One, so what, the castle was in Laurel Canyon?
I think so. Yeah.
Um,
It was Bela Lugosi, the actor.
oh, really?
The actor that or something. I read that somewhere. It was
His castle.
one of the actors from those movies. I don't think it was
Oh.
actually him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I wonder how
He
they.
takes a tour in the documentary. Did you see that part?
Yeah.
He's like touring
Yeah.
through
Oh,
the castle.
That's funny. He
Talks
and
about
he
the shit coming through the toilet.
the first time he flushed it, he said the green,
Yeah.
a fountain of green sewage shot up into the
Yeah.
ceiling. And then he said he had an opportunity to buy that mansion, that castle. He says in like 1967, 68 for $50,000, and then he said, oh, recently, you know, it just sold for like, he was guessing like $5 million or something.
And I bet you it was a lot more than that.
And he said, it's funny. It's like, what is it? The furniture? Can I go back to, I know we're on side 2 now, but there's an instrumental at the end of side 1 called Emotions, which I really like. If we could listen to that one, let's see if I can find. It's here. Now I'll go to play. And let's see, Move Softly to Me is there. So it's this one, I think. Let's see if this works, guys. Click. Yes, Emotions. I love that surf guitar. Makes me think of the Ventures. I guess Dick Dale. What do you think? I guess Dick Dale kind of invented that sound, but I love that surf guitar sound, and the drumming's a bit different there, where he's doing kind of a military or a
Yeah.
beat on the snare, both hands on the snare.
Yeah.
I love that song. I could listen to
Guitar is
that
nice.
guitar all day.
Yeah.
Makes me think of a Western, like a spaghetti Western sound.
Yeah.
Who's the famous composer that died last year or so?
Ennio Morricone.
Yeah, like it strikes me as something like that almost. Like you could picture like a
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
some kind of showdown or what do you call that? A gun? Yeah, a gunfight showdown. What do you call
Yeah.
that situation? The two cowboys walking towards each other. Isn't there a word for that?
Not a
A
duel.
duel.
Yeah.
Duel. Yeah. Isn't it a duel?
That kind of situation, a gun duel.
Yeah.
Center
I
of
agree.
town.
That would be one of the songs that that was not on my compilation that I was like, oh, somewhat new to me. I mean, I bought this record. I was actually looking for it for a very long time. I finally found it, but I bought it when I was not really in my huge love phase. So I kind of listened to it if I would have bought it when I was really, really back into, the whole thing. So it's fun. It was fun to hear that track and a couple others. That was one of them that was newish to me. Again,
That's
not part of my DNA.
Yeah.
Like the other tracks. Yeah.
so it's a Johnny and Arthur composition. That song.
Ah. Is that one that Arthur played the drums on? Do you know?
No.
No, because those are some even. The snare drum is very even, and I wonder if that was our friend Don Conca, maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Snoopy couldn't play even, but it sounds good.
He, in the little video, I posted it on Facebook, and I think we've talked about it, Dave and Brandon, a little bit separately. Snoopy Pfisterer now lives in Olympia, Washington, and it looks like a home in the woods, which he was involved in building or very much involved in the design of. It's a very rustic, unique, natural styled home in the woods in Washington. And so that the person comes, basically the little video is to showcase that home, but they talk to him, about his time in love and his life as a musician. He does say he took what he started with piano. I think he had lessons on piano and maybe the clarinet, and didn't start playing the drums until, he heard the Beatles, maybe when he was an adolescent. So he's got some formal musical training. And, after, even though, and he says in that documentary, he was only in the band because Don Conca wouldn't show up. And that when the band needed a drummer, he felt he was the last guy they thought of. He was the last guy they would call. So I never really felt a part of the band. But I think, he does an excellent job. He's
Yeah. Well, I think, something that you and I had talked about, I think we were actually talking about like Black Flag or something. But
yeah.
I don't think anyone really stands out as being an amazing musician in this, particularly on this record. But yet, because they rehearsed a lot and they played a lot of gigs, they were a great band. And instead of working on their particular chops or being good at whatever, they were just good at being a band. And there's and I think there's a lot of bands like that where, and I guess that's kind of the secret to the whole thing is playing together and not one person like kind of standing out as, oh, that guy's amazing and that guy's it, you know what I mean? Like the drumming might not be spectacular, but it's perfect for what this band did and laid down on tape for these sessions. So I can hear that.
So when
Yeah.
when you opened for Love in 2002, right?
Yes.
And, yeah.
Right.
So, well, first off, any stories from that interacting with them, and also who was in the band at that point? I mean, was it?
Well, it was just Arthur Lee, and he had the band Baby Lemonade was his backing band. Basically, that's what it was.
Okay.
So there was, I think Johnny Eccles was part of that. But he was definitely not at that show. But I think he had played gigs with them because he mentions it in an interview, and I was like, I don't remember him being on that stage. And I would have remembered him because it would have been like two old guys, and then
yeah. They all look exceptionally young in the
exactly.
DVD.
And I don't really, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of stories from the show because I was super excited about it, and I had a camera, and I didn't have a digital camera at the time. I had like a film camera, and I didn't even stay backstage. I was like, I'm going to get up front. So I was trying to get like the best spot in front of the stage because I really wanted to enjoy it. And I took 1 million pictures. And I cannot share them with you because the house that I lived in was burglarized, and they stole the camera before I was able to develop those pictures. So somewhere there's a camera in some shop that no one's going to buy that has my love pictures on there. But I just remember being so excited to hear the songs and live. I never thought I would hear, because Arthur Lee was in jail. We never thought he was going to get out, and certainly never thought we'd see the band. And then all of a sudden, not only are they playing in Buffalo, but we're going to be special guests.
That was good.
Of the show.
Girl
yes,
Pope.
That was Girl.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And and Girl Pope, that was Mark who had introduced me to 7 and 7 Is and Forever Changes, and he introduced me to the whole thing. So, and in our first album, in the liner notes, we put "Free Arthur Lee," in the liner notes, and that was our little nod to, we're Love fans. So, and then they freed him, and we
That
think it was because
the
of
legal
us.
campaign started in.
But I think it was
Buffalo.
because what he did was not something with a gun and Neighbors. I don't know. I think he shot a gun into the air, and I think he did like 4 or 5 years.
Really?
I think
which seems like was it 5? Which is kind of a lot, I think, for
they said
for just being a jerk.
Probably some cop who wanted to get him since 1966, right?
Yeah, I mean,
from Cosmo's Alley.
Yeah.
Well, they did say that was part of the 3 Strikes You're Out program. Remember that? I don't know if it was across the country or just in certain parts like California, but
it was in California that he got in trouble in LA.
I think I think so, but I'm not sure. But
I
they
don't
did.
know.
What I read last night, they mentioned that his prison term was directly related to the 3 Strikes You're Out program. So yeah,
was that Joe Biden? Did he have something to do with that? Yeah,
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think he did, but
because he doesn't have a good record on incarceration and criminalization.
Are there any songs from that performance in 2002 that stick out in your memory?
No, because they did Forever Changes in its entirety, and just to hear it, the whole thing was so it didn't stick out to me. I enjoyed the whole show. And we were just looking at the track list. I guess they did other, after they did Forever Changes, they did other songs, which I don't remember. but
Oh, yeah, I have.
I remember just enjoying every minute of it, and I knew every single song, and I knew even the mumbling at the end, you know, all of God's children gotta be free and whatever, you know. But so it was just it was pretty special. I like to tell people it was the highlight of our career was to
really?
be able to play with love, because it would, like, think about, like, I mean, we opened up for so many different people, but that was just like, we were like huge fans, and you never thought it was going to happen. Like I said, seeing the band was one thing, but to actually be able to share the stage with them was another. And I think, like, during one of the songs, I like hit, you know, their drums were behind me, so I like kind of hit the cymbal.
Oh,
just so I could be like, oh, you're not, you know, you're not supposed to touch the other band stuff, but I was just like, oh, I'm gonna hit their cymbals because this is Love's drum set, you know.
yeah.
So I remember doing something like that because they were right behind me. So yeah, I didn't meet Arthur Lee. I didn't. I was under the impression that he was nuts.
Oh, really?
And from watching the documentary, he's not nuts, and I kind of feel bad now because I didn't think that I should even approach him. Like, I thought he was that kind of crazy, and I think he wanted maybe people to think that a little bit. He seems to be big on having like a myth around him, and if I have a good friend who lives in LA who would tell me how he would see Arthur Lee like walking down the street all the time, and he seemed a little like a vagrant kind of, you know what I mean? And so I wasn't really like big on meeting him because I didn't want to be disappointed with the whole thing. And now I kind of I wish I would have, because I don't think that was true. Watching the documentary, he seems very, very lucid, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so. Well,
Yeah.
When's that documentary? When is it from? What year?
I think it's from like 2005.
Okay.
Or I'm not sure. It
right around the time.
Than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even later.
I was thinking maybe that documentary had a hand in him, you know, his kind of resurgence with, you know,
definitely.
touring. Do you know Brandon, how he got hooked up with Baby Lemonade, how they became, you know,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I'm just, how they became Love, you know. And I mean, I think
and Baby Lemonade is a reference to a Syd Barrett song.
Yeah.
So you get the whole psychedelic. Well, there's, you know, LA. I have met some people from there. I mean, it's kind of a long story, but it seems like there's a cult of younger guys who worship the older guys, as they should. I mean, I think we're kind of in that camp a little bit, but we're not LA musicians. Because I've met some people who play with Brian Wilson, and they just worship him. And like, but they're like they're a younger generation, and I'm gonna assume that Baby Lemonade is the same kind of thing. Like, they're like, you know, Arthur Lee. We're playing with Arthur Lee.
Yeah, they understood
and carrying the torch. So I think it's something like that, but I don't know how they actually hooked up, because there's, you know, since Forever Changes and the band, that first lineup broke up, there's been so many different Arthur Lee incarnations and compilations and albums, and, you know, he just keeps the name but has all these different people playing with him all the time. And
I wonder what happened with Johnny Eccles. Like, it's, you know, they seem to have the strongest relationship, the you know, strongest bond. They have the childhood connection. And you know, from what he said in the documentary, Johnny Eccles, their vision for the band, or, you know, their preferences for music were really tight too. So I wonder when when and how he parted ways with Arthur Lee, because he didn't really continue in the 70s or 80s with him, did he?
No, right. But it seemed like he reconnected with him before he died, and
Okay,
I think he was starting to play shows with them again.
Okay.
Now, did any of the guys do other stuff that was renowned? I mean, like Ken Forsee, did he start another band? So, I mean, how long was Love around? Or I mean,
well,
okay, let's look at their. Wait,
hopefully how you got here.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just wondering if there was any of those guys started another band and did cool stuff.
Well, Brian McLean, he I was telling you last week, I read he became a born again Christian, or became a Christian. He was pretty religious, and he said he had an experience. When I guess things weren't going well with the band and in his personal life, and he said he found himself in a hotel room and he prayed. He decided, I'm going to pray, and he prayed, and then a week or so later, he was in a coffee shop and the coffee turned to sand. And he felt,
you told me that. Yeah.
That was a sign from God. And he became an avid Christian. And I think he recorded a lot of Christian themed music. I think his sister, maybe his stepsister, was in the band Lone Justice, a kind of 80s country rock and roll band, kind of before the term alt country. But he did, I think a collection that was released posthumously after he died. He died young at like 52 of a heart attack. But then I think it's maybe on the Sundays label. Do you have it, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know of it, but I never went for it.
I think I saw it at Revolver Records when I picked up this one. Mm-hmm. And I read like David Frick, the critic for Rolling Stone, other things. He gave it pretty high marks. And I think these were songs that he envisioned being on I don't know, Forever Changes, but envisioned on being on Love recordings. So I definitely want to check that out. Those. Should we highlight any more tracks on side 2? We highlighted You, I'll Be Following. We've talked about Hey Joe. We talked about Sign DC.
The Sign DC, I wanted to mention. Does it remind you guys of House of the Rising Sun a little bit?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Big time. That was the one that it was. There was some controversy over, like I said in the liner notes of this. Arthur Lee says, no, DC was about Washington, DC. And
the Discord
it's not about Conca. But then in the documentary, he says it was about Conca. So yeah, I think Arthur liked to put weird information out there just keep it weird, or I don't know why.
I think he said it when he was walking through the house, wasn't he? It's like, Don, the Sign DC guy lived in this room or something. Like he actually,
he like admits it.
Yeah,
but that was much later than this compilation. I think is from like the mid '90s or something. But
maybe too. I think you mentioned earlier, Brandon, that to kind of save him from his friend from some bad publicity or unwanted attention.
Yeah.
Maybe that was part of it as well.
Right. So I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here. I just came across something interesting on that song Mushroom Clouds.
Oh, we can go. Yeah, we're.
I don't know if it's done on purpose, but at the end of the song, they go to this little chord sequence and they play through it twice. And to me, it sounds like the same chord sequence that you hear in 7 and 7 is, and then you just happens to be like, this song's about, you know, mushroom clouds, and then of course at the end of 7 and 7 is, you have the big, you know, the big
explosion.
what I always think of as an atomic explosion.
Right.
And I don't know if that's done on purpose, where they like, let's do that chord change from the end of that song. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's
Maybe,
yeah.
but it's at the end, and it's
Interesting
not
theory.
even. Yes, and
Why don't we hear a little bit of
yeah, check it out.
Mushroom Cloud. So that's the second last song.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
We got, I think it's this one here. Yep. Okay, found it. I'm gonna just turn down this volume. Do you want me to go towards? You want me to go towards the end of?
Yeah, you don't want to hear that the whole thing. We're gonna lose people, Greg. No one's gonna make it this long, are they?
Let me see now. Oh wait. Yeah, I'll turn it down a little bit, and then I have to manually
fast forward. Like
yes.
the old days.
Oh, wait, maybe I just. Can I drag it? Oh. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. First time with this keynote. That sounds awful. I think that's going faster. No.
Sure is.
About here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's
now you got to listen to 7 and 7 is.
We got to do it, and we're let's see, folks at home. Thanks for staying with us for two
I don't know if anyone did. Yeah.
Oh, they're right here with us. All right, we're going to make it to 7 and 7 is, and you know, I in that video for Snoop Fisterer in his tiny house in the forest of Washington, and he talks about how, you know, he couldn't play on 7 and 7 is. He couldn't, you know, while he was able, after multiple takes, to play the drums on 7 and 7 is for the recording, and what an incredible recording, he couldn't reproduce that live, and that was, and then it became their hit. So he felt that was really the catalyst for him getting kicked out of the band. In the documentary, he says it's
Little Red Book.
Little Red Book was also proved his undoing, and
he always came in after the stop. He always came in wrong, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Arthur Lee was like, "If you don't get it this tonight, you're done."
You might as well pack your
and he
shit
screwed
up
it up. That's something I would do. I would definitely.
Who wouldn't? I mean, I think anybody's going to have a certain amount of performance anxiety, and then the leader of the band tells you, "Yeah, you screw it up tonight, you're done." Well, of course, you know, how could you not screw it up? But Well, let's listen to it. It's an amazing song, amazing recording.
Which is not on this record, by the way.
Yeah, this is the single after after their debut.
When I was a boy, I thought about the times I'd be a man. I'd sit inside a bottle and pretend that I was in a can. If I'm gonna lose my stick my mind in an ice cream bowl. You can throw me if you wanna, but when I'm on, I go boop, bip, bip, boop, bip, bip, yeah. If I don't start crying, it's because I have got no eyes. My father's in the fireplace and my dog lies hypnotized. Through a traffic light, I wasn't able to find my way. Trapped inside a night from a day, and I go boop, bip, bip, boop, bip, bip, yeah.
Listen for those chord changes. So we're back in Groovy Town.
Yeah, I think it's when they do the bloom, bloom, bloom. I don't know. It might it's just something I kind of heard, and I'm like, wait, I think that's the same sequence as that part.
It sounded familiar when you mentioned it, and we were listening to Mushroom Clouds. It did sound familiar.
It's
I can't
slower,
pinpoint.
but I feel like it. I don't know.
And another interesting thing about that song, I guess there was the theory that that explosion in this song was created by picking up an amp and dropping it, but I read something where the producer said that it came from a sound effects record of maybe of gunshots or something. It just they just made it real big. And actually, just today, as I was doing a little research, I came across an interview with Jack Holtzman, the founder, the president of Elektra Records, and it's from October in Rolling Stone of this year. And they said when he first started his label, it wasn't successful when they were just a folk label. They lost money, and he had to make sound effects records to make money, which they made a lot of money doing. And so so now I'm thinking that the sound effect they used for that explosion was from that library of recordings.
Cool.
But what about like the idea of like the way Snoopy tells it in that video that I couldn't play their hit 7 and 7 is, and that proved to be my undoing. Like what kind of ironic, cruel twist of fate that he's able to, that's an amazing drum work, like, and that's a song I came to you with. I didn't know, your history with Mark Norris putting it on the punk rock starter kit.
Yeah.
But I heard this song on a Mojo compilation, a garage rock from about 16 years ago, and there's some great, and I've always loved that song. And I was listening to it one day in the car, and I was like, oh, you know,
I want to learn this.
I gotta try and be able to do something like learn this basic beat, try and get some of that energy. And I think you clocked it at like 154 beats per minute. I didn't really, I'm in like the 115, right? It's just a single stroke, you're the left, right, left, right. But so it's really amazing feat of drumming. But what a kind of cruel, so he has that recording, which is timeless, but in his telling, it proved to be, his undoing it, and, paved the way for his ouster from the band. Like,
Well, it seems to me that Snoopy could have used some confidence.
Yeah.
Even in the movie, he kind of doesn't, usually when you put cameras on people, they become a little more, right? You get a little, like, you want to tell your story a little bit.
Right.
Maybe not Snoopy. He was all like, I sucked, which isn't even true.
No.
Like,
but I kind of like I think they were young guys, and Arthur Lee had a clear vision for what he wanted. I think all the guys were talented. They had a clear vision for what they wanted, so they didn't have much patience for his struggles, and they have this deal with Elektra. But I know for him to have that confidence, I think he needed to be in a more supportive environment. And just despite their name for Snoopy, they did, he was left with the question, where's the love? They didn't. And Arthur Lee says at one point, he's like, so he said, the other guys didn't like Snoopy. He was a square.
Yeah.
But I loved him. And
I thought it was nice. I smiled during that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And Snoopy does say he was the guy, he kind of counseled them before he went to the draft office, because he didn't want him to get drafted, and, counseled them on
this is how you do
much acid to take. And, but it's kind of, we listen to this record, and it's an amazing sound, and it seems like for people in the band and the people in Cosmos Alley, an amazing time to be a young person. Snoopy has a different perspective, a real perspective.
When you look at the album cover, he does look like the square. Like, if you had to choose who would be referred to as the square, I think it would be. Isn't he wearing
like so young?
The guy with the vest?
The
hair parted in the middle?
Yeah.
He looks like he's about 12 years old.
Yeah.
Very young.
And in the back, he's kind of hiding. He's in.
But he must have been pretty good, because they were like, they had lines of people coming to see them, like we said. And he had to keep up with them.
Sure, yeah.
If they wouldn't have called him back.
No. And like you said, that this album is really kind of a representation of their live set, or, it really finds its foundation there. So, I think he had to play a role in that, and too bad the guys couldn't have been more supportive. But he did also, to Arthur Lee's credit, after, I guess he blew it with Little Red Book, and he lost the drum seat for good. He kept him on because of his piano skills, and he plays on harpsichord.
Right.
And Johnny Eccles also says, like, oh, that was a creative phase for the band, and that was a good phase. But I like to think Snoopy is happy now in Olympia, Washington.
He seems happy in his treehouse.
Yeah, it's cool. I hope he is. I know I could, you know, and you can attest. I don't. I can't play 7 and 7 is on the drums, and who knows if I ever could come close.
For some reason, the vocals on 7 and 7, I can't put my finger on it, but it reminds me of Bob Dylan's Hurricane song.
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, but I can't even explain why.
That's a pretty. I mean, it's not that tempo, but that's a pretty driving song. So.
Well, you know, it's funny that you mention it. I feel like you could take, like I was talking about, that beat that's through the whole record. Now, not 7 and 7 is because it's different, but I feel like the Hurricane has the ride cymbal ding ding deck ding ding deck ding ding deck ding deck ding deck. I think it could be any of the drumming on the first Love album.
It could be Hurricane.
Yeah,
okay.
Hurricane is it follows that formula. I think I'm thinking out loud.
Wow, maybe I was picking up on the drums rather than the the vocals. I don't know.
We should listen. I'm going to listen to that, and I'll get back to you on it. But yeah, 7 and 7 is powerful stuff. And you know where he got the title, right?
Well, now it was about his girlfriend's birthday or something. Yeah.
His birthday and her birthday were both March 7th.
Okay.
So 7 and 7 is.
And yeah, that's pretty poetic.
Yeah.
7 and 7 is.
7 and 7 is. So do you think anyone's going to make it this far to the...
Yeah. I was just saying, let's wrap it up. We could continue talking, but I'll kill the record button.
Yeah.
I felt
before you stop, Dave. So, and you know, full transparency here. We're not, you know, on the Elektra or Rhino payroll, but we gotta say, if you can't go check out Love's eponymous debut and or any albums after, especially De Capo or Forever Changes. Listen, buy, love.
Nice.